Hello, everyone. Today is where I'm going to do a quick review over what we covered today, or this week, rather, with rigid bodies and yeah. So I think that should be the core idea of it. So yeah. All right. So let's begin. So the first thing that we really did today was, or this week in particular, was inside of our engine, we really expanded our rigid body. One thing to note is that one very important thing is that we use fixed update to update our velocity. But what we did was inside of our rigid body, we now update our position automatically. Or first, we update our velocity based off of the gravity and acceleration, and we scale it by time.delta time. And then we update our position based on the velocity. And then we also reset the acceleration back equal to 0. This lets us do specific stuff, but which we'll be explaining. So if we go to game platform, and we actually let's look at some of these game objects and stuff. What we do is for platform hero, we set gravity equal to 32, if we look at our platform game, we have a platform game where if we press spacebar, we can jump, and we have double jump, and we slowly fall down. There was a small fix to the how we do it. So if we go to our hero controller, we actually changed a few things, which I will be going over so that everyone can understand. So our jumping issue was a issue with our rigid body. So if we go to a rigid body, the way we did it, but prior, was that we update our transform.position first, and then we applied velocity. This is not the correct way. What was happening was that we update the position and then we apply the downwards velocity due to gravity, and then they just kind of cancel out. So what we had to do was we moved the this.transform.position plus equals after updating our velocity. So now we update our velocity first, then we update our position, then we reset acceleration. There's also some small changes inside of our hero controller to make it a little bit better. So we now have a handle collision variable. So what we do now is we obviously have a jump timer of 1,000. We have is grounded variable equal to false. And then we make sure all of those variables are set equal to false on start, and we get our rigid body component for reference. And then last jump is now negative 1,000. What we do is that whenever we do on collision enter or on collision stay, we just handle collision by calling the this.handle collision, where we set this.rigidbody.y. So if your velocity is positive and the MTV is negative, then we set the velocity equal to 0 and we're grounded. Otherwise, this one is if we hit a ceiling, then we set the rigid body velocity equal to 0. Because that means we hit the ceiling and we now need gravity to bring us down. For update, we do just a very, very basic input, where if you do arrow.left key, you set direction and you add your speed, a negative speed because you're moving left. So it's a negative velocity, negative speed times time dot delta time. And then you set your transformed position equal to whatever the position is added to your direction, and then you set is grounded equal to false, no matter what inside of your fixed update to reset it. Then what we have is we have update. So fixed update, all this stuff is in fixed update because your arrow left and arrow right are movement, and they need to be consistent and fixed prior to calling decided draw and stuff. And then this update deals with jump stuff. So what we do is we set the velocity.y equal to jump strength. So then we apply a constant velocity, or we apply a velocity of negative 75, which means we're going up. As we talked about in class, we always, if you jump, we just inverse the double jump, and then we set the last jump equal to time dot delta time so that we can determine some jumping aspects to it. Overall, there's a lot of things or ways to expand upon this. So kind of a, how should I say, an expansion of this is if we go from previous semesters, I did a platformer that is currently not working, but I could show you some stuff. So if we go to spring 2024, for example, in my character or my player controller, I had like stuff like jump velocity, terminal velocity. What else? The main thing that I did, there's some stuff where I had it where best way to describe it is wall climbing. So like, for example, if I hit a wall, what I can do is I can set the jump direction so that I can actually jump off the wall and propel yourself. There's a lot of things you can expand upon this with your velocity and rigid body stuff that if you want me, or if you want help exploring, then you could always ask me or Rick's for that advice. But overall, that's kind of the whole issue, or all we did is that we really expanded our rigid body and actually really explain what is happening with rigid body and how we can actually implement implement it. Oh, and the final thing is the core thing is that when you do rigid body, when you have gravity inside your component, you can adjust it. So let's adjust to 960 so that it feels a little bit more like gravity. That's a little too much, 320. And then you could always, oh, and the final thing I should probably talk about is how this is an art. You don't really know what is correct until you just implement it. So you just gotta mess around with some stuff. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully that kind of just briefly explains everything and explains the fix that was made, because now I can jump whenever. So hopefully that everything works. There is a slight bug now that I'm playing with it. So one thing that is happening is that which could be a feature, but if one thing that's niche is happening is that since you can double jump, normally Like if you fall off, you shouldn't be able to jump. But what's happening is that since we have double jump, you should be able to fall off and jump. But that's neither nor. That's a specific implementation issue. The way you would solve that is you would have to have if this is grounded. So if this grounded is false, there's probably a logical consistency in there that can be done where you check for input.space first, and then you check if you're grounded. If you're not grounded and you have not jumped, then you can jump, type of thing. But yeah, so hopefully this kind of explains how or the changes that needed to be made in order to actually run the code, and you can jump on command.